Today, I talked with Armaine Dela Cruz, a junior transfer student at Rowan University studying film and writing arts. Dela Cruz grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and moved to New Jersey around the time she started college. Dela Cruz talked about her experiences growing up in the South as a queer individual, and about some of her experiences at Rowan as a queer college student.
I identify as honestly more queer than anything else, but if somebody were to come up and ask me, I'll probably say lesbian. Back in high school, it really was like if you know you know situation where only my closest friends knew. And this I realized in high school that I knew I was queer. That's a whole other journey by itself. So it was definitely like my closest friends knew, and then again, like, you didn't have to ask me. People would ask me, but I'm like, if you know, you know. Like, I shouldn't have to try and answer that question for you. When I moved here, I kind of knew immediately. I was like, there's no reason for me to hide it, except to the family I live with right now. But other than that, there's no reason I should hide it at all. So I made sure that was pretty much, like, known. In, like, not even, like, the stereotypical ways. Like, it kind of goes back to the logic of if you know, you know. But truly, it worked. Like, I know, like, queer people around me just knew that I was not straight, and that was perfect, because, like, there's no reason to hide, and I wanted that to be known, essentially. So I've definitely grew more into my queerness just because I'm in a space where I now accept it and other people know of it. I guess to start off with community college, in a very weird way, it helps you to, like, find people to talk to. But I also had, like, two aspects of that, like, especially since I'm a film major, like, you want to look for women immediately, and that's how I ended up meeting my best friend. Like, we saw each other in the foundations class, and I was like, I have to be friends with her, and that was immediate. But, like, in the queer aspect, it definitely helped me, like, in both Rowan and both at my old school, like, helped me find friends who were pretty morally in line with me. I'm not gonna say being queer helped in that way, but it in that weird way of having, like, a gay radar. Not even outright like that, but sort of similar to it, where you almost instinctually find people you're comfortable with, and you kind of get that vibe, almost. You're gonna have those run-ins where it's just, like, somebody doesn't know your identity outright. Somebody doesn't have that radar, and you kind of have to go through that, oh, let's have, like, a boy talk situation. And I'm like, I'm all eyes and I'm all ears, but, like, this doesn't really pertain to me. But I'm gonna hear you out because you're my friend and stuff like that. Having a friend group, having some sign of alliance with other women, other queer people, is just been extremely helpful. And I think how I've been navigating that, having that understanding part, but also having that confidence, like, I think they kind of go hand in hand, though, because, like, when you have that confidence and you have your friends with you, like, that kind of does make you feel unstoppable at a certain extent. Like, Rowan is such a big campus to where you do get to find the people. Like, even if it seems too big to manage, like, there are people there for you who are willing to be, like, not even just friends, but, like, just people to talk to in general. And it's helped because I have found a community of people where I can really be comfortable with and understand myself as a queer person, but also understand, like, that's not the biggest thing about me, too. It's a part of me that's very important, but it's also not the biggest thing. It's me, and people want to be friends with me, and that's really nice. I've attended a couple events under Soul, which is the queer people of color club here at Rowan. It's a pretty new club. I know it started, I think, in November of the last year, so I've been to a couple events with them. They're great. It's such a small group of people. I feel like, especially with something about being queer, understanding and kind of coming to terms and being comfortable with being queer does take, like, talking about it. And you don't want to talk about it with, like, dozens, hundreds of people in a group, whereas, like, a small group of people and you find yourself pretty comfortable. Like, I've always found, for me, that has helped. Like, that's the reason why I think Soul is doing really well right now. Rather than having, like, this big, like, conglomerative group, there is, like, a small group of people. In a room of 100 people, you know you're not alone, but it does feel pretty hard to talk to everybody all at once. I want to use these spaces for comfortability than having these spaces for, like, other events. I already do it with other clubs, almost. So it's kind of, like, it's a really nice way to, like, validate my queerness and stuff like that. Being in a room, specifically with Soul, what I really like about them is that, yeah, that person of color aspect really helps. Yeah, just, I like feeling the community part in the community is kind of, like, the biggest thing for me. and I also take a queer theory class. It is super cool. I went into the class thinking I would just learn more specifically about, like, queer identification, but I'm coming out of it learning about, like, queer theology and queering in the Bible and stuff like that. And I think that's a really cool aspect of that class. I really enjoy it. It's a cool perspective on especially something like the Bible, something that's always kind of been in my life. Especially growing up in the South, like, being around Christianity and being around the Bible, like, that kind of never leaves you. So, having this class to look on a different perspective of the Bible outside of, like, what should be known, it has been really cool, specifically in a queer perspective. I think I never really realized that, like, reading queerly is basically just reading differently, reading not to, like, revolutionize anything, but reading because, like, you want to claim something back in that way. So I think that's really cool, and this class definitely opened a window for that. I think of, like, the clubs I'm in, and it kind of goes back to, like, it definitely helps that I'm a woman, but, and like, women and women alliance, but, like, even on a queer aspect of, like, when I think of clubs like Cinema Workshop and stuff like that, and we have a film like Vampire Bucket List, where Vampire Bucket List, we have, like, 2 queer leads, it's kind of like that, yes! Almost like, I immediately know I'm comfortable in a space when that's the reaction. Like, there doesn't need to be a questioning in that. In the film community, it can get kind of hard, because whether they mean to or not, there is almost always, like, a power that exists. And it's really interesting to see in the variations it comes with. It's either, like, you're getting talked down to even though you know what's happening, like a one comment thing that kind of rubs you the wrong way, and it goes back to the gut feeling, too, of just, like, I don't know how to feel about this right now, but that did not make me feel good. I definitely think a part of it is just, it's not necessarily, like, teaming up. We don't need to make, like, a team of women against all these men to beat them down, but, like, it definitely helps having that almost, like, community of women, like, understanding that even though we have, like, a white male straight majority, like, just because the majority is there doesn't mean the minority is any less important. So just kind of understanding being friends with everybody and navigating my way through these friends has been, like, the biggest thing for me ever since I got to Rowan this year. If anything, that's been the biggest thing for me in college. Like, I think about when I was in RCSJ, like, I became friends with that girl I was talking about. We literally made a film group that would end up becoming predominantly white, straight man. And that was a very big thing we had to combat of, like, understanding, like, regardless if we had power or not, like, how to make the film community more of a community, and that was getting stripped down. And that's why I think sometimes, like, these male-dominated groups kind of, like, fall. Because it's, like, they're either always talking each other up, or it's always the one man who just believes he can do it. And it's seeing these two very polar opposite things that can take advantage of you. Having and making sure you have your own voice that's, like, purposeful and willing to create with other people, it helps. And I think that's just the biggest way of navigating that. But over this past weekend, I just did an honors murder mystery play. And in the show, there's a queer couple in it. And even my character, who's a girl, like, mentions that she's talking to a lady. Just stuff like that, where there was the first night that was the friends and family night, and then the second night that was just the honors group. And I'm not gonna lie, during the friends and family night, I was a little bit tense because I knew my family was gonna be there, regardless if I'm playing a character or not. Like, their quote-unquote comfortability of watching it, like, these are things I, like, literally had to consider. Even, like, on stage, I, like, for, like, a 0.5 second thing, I was considering changing the line to just a person, but I was like, why should I be scared? I'm glad that I'm comfortable in my queerness to know, like, I shouldn't be scared of that, but, like, the fact I still have to think around it is kind of where it does suck. Honors night, though, I knew I was like, I'll be fine. People in that room, I mean, there very well could be somebody in that room who disagrees with it, but I wasn't gonna put up with it. It's weird seeing confidence be different in two different places, even though I'm performing the same play. Like, I knew in the honors play, when we're performing in front of honors students, like, especially, like, people my age, I'm like, they'll get it. Like, why should it be a problem? But then I'm in a room of, like, adults, specifically, like, even my family. I'm like, oh, like, would this be weird to them? Like, still having that kind of almost weird mindset. It does suck. And I guess that isn't even necessarily like the Rowan student body, but I think that's interesting of like this was something I had to do for school, for the school. And I had those thoughts. Like I had to still think about that. Even though I've grown so much in my queerness, like I can't help but always go back to think of that stuff like that. It has stopped as of recently, but like the gay protesters that were around, the Christian protesters that were around Rowan for all of last semester, and even prior to that, who held like a giant protest the year before. I think I understand Rowan's policy of keeping them as matters of freedom of speech, but that is hate speech and existing that's there. I'm wondering if anything had changed because they haven't been here this whole spring semester, but should it even exist? It's, I think, the biggest question. So I think that's kind of the height of how I've experienced how Rowan has held a harm on the queer community of like, yes, everything is freedom of speech, but what does it stop to the part where it starts hurting people? It's hard, but sometimes I just shoo it in as the norm. So, like, you're given the norm of, like, oh, like, are you talking to somebody? And it's like, who is he? And I'm like, she. Like, it's a very, like, you gotta have the confidence for it. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't have this confidence a lot of the times. Like, it's a very, like, 50-50 thing, depending on, like, the social setting. But really to, like, combat the norm, you just have to place that you are not the norm and then make it the norm. It's considering the norm is still kind of heterosexual, understanding, like, definitely depends on the space, too. The safety of the space. I wouldn't encourage doing that in, like, a space you feel unsafe in. Don't put yourself out there that in a way that would probably get you hurt or chastised in any kind of way. But, in a space you kind of basically know you're safe, it's just understanding that, like, have the confidence of just being, like, no, that's not that. This is me. This is me. This is me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be now. Gonna let the light shine on me. Yeah, something like that.